Okay, get ready, because in this episode, this is where we start to get technical. We're going to talk about three main subjects involving airspace on this episode. In other episodes, we'll dive deeper into tower symbols and CTAF boxes. But for now, we'll begin with airspace callouts, airspace lines, and airspace dimensions. Some of these charts are actually on the test, so pay close attention. On this chart, in these areas, you can see fractions 110 over 50, and below you can see the fraction 110 over 60. What these numbers are telling you is that in that Class B airspace with the blue lines, that's how you can tell, the top number 110 is 11,000 feet and the bottom number 50 is 5,000 feet, and below it is 6,000 feet. That's telling you where the Class B shelf begins, and then the top number tells you where it ends. Most of the time you can depend on these numbers to be similar. For Class B airspace, top of the shelf is going to be 11,000 feet, and for Class C standard airspace, top of the shelf is usually 4,000 feet. Now you can see by the bottom numbers, those can change, but you will see more times than not the same bottom number, because I believe the bottom standard for a Class C is 4,000, and then the Class B may be 5,000, where you would see 110 over 50 very often for Class B, and then for Class C you will see 40 over 11, I believe, very often. In this section, we'll learn more about airspace lines and their subtle differences. You'll learn quickly about what the colors mean, what the fading means, and what the dotted lines mean, as well as learning to interpret when the lines stop and when they intersect. First of all, take a look at this slide. It's got a lot of things going on. You see that dotted line inside the red line? First of all, that solid red line is Class C airspace, and you can see where it butts up. There are two defined cores within this Class C airspace, but what I want you to pay attention to is that black dotted line in the middle of the Class C red line on the left side of the core. That's telling you that there is Class E, as in echo, airspace below. If you look at the airspace callouts, 40 over 20, that's telling you what? It's telling you that the Class C shelf above begins at 2,000 feet and runs up to 4,000 feet. What the dotted square with the minus 20 inside it tells you where that Class E airspace is as far as its height is concerned. Now, in your legend, it tells you what a negative means. What does a negative mean? It means that the Class E ceiling is 2,000 feet, but it does not include 2,000 feet. That means if you are at 2,000 feet, you are now in the Class C shelf. Remember that. That's very important. Class E airspace. It's easy to tell Class E airspace with the large faded line beyond the solid line. You can see it depicted in red, and you can see it depicted in blue. That is usually meaning that the airspace in a C level will be classified as an E, but in red because of the height, and the same for a blue. When you are in Class E airspace, you are looking for the dotted square with a number in the center. In this last section titled Airspace Dimensions, we're going to talk about Class C airspace and Class B airspace in a three-dimensional way. As you're looking at the slide, you can see that there's a core. That core extends up from the center of an airport, which is usually near a city. The shelf above, the cylinder, is the airspace that's controlled above the core. What happens is airspace is needed further out as you get higher up for air traffic to enter into the core area and to turn and to land. Class B airspace is bigger and higher for different traffic reasons. When you're looking at the Class B airspace slide, you can see a much bigger shelf above the first shelf that covers the core. That second shelf is much higher, usually at about 5,000 feet or 6,000 feet to start. The first shelf is usually at about 1,100 feet or 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet. But you need to be aware, you on the ground outside of that core are flying underneath controlled airspace that you need to always stay out of without special permissions. That is extremely critical to know. And that is the number one safety aspect of flying a drone that will get you in trouble with federal marshals. Thank you for watching my personal pilot training series. And as always, thank you for your continued support.